Monica, you're on mute.
Yeah. Okay. Good morning. Let's start. Right. So before I continue with what we were talking about in the last class, I would just like to tell you that I have uploaded your group assignments. Okay. So you can go. I will also email you these. So you go on my web page and you go to topics in applied econometrics 21 and you click on group assignment and it will take you to this document. Okay. So here are your group assignments. There
Sir,
are
we
in
can't
total.
see your screen if you are
Oh,
sharing. Like,
sorry. Yeah, sure. Um, uh, where is it? Yeah. Okay. So can you see it now?
yes, sir.
Okay, so you go on my webpage, you click on this topics in applied econometrics 21 and you click on this group assignment and it will take you to this document. Okay, and so basically each group has 3 members except for one group in PhD because PhD we have 5 people. So so group 11 has just 2 members and then group 12 has 3. So there are in total 12 groups. Okay, and all the assignments and everything you will be doing in groups. So you will just submit one document, one assignment, okay, per group. So this is your group assignment, and then for your assignment what I am planning. So what you will do for your assignment is you can remember I talked about this paper in Ben's 2014. So this is also uploaded here. So you can click on it and it will take you to this paper which you can download. So what you have to do is, you have to go to section 3 of this paper, which is this one, the classic example supply and demand. So section 3 of this paper talks about the demand supply example that we discussed. So what you have to do is you have to in groups, okay, the group has to do this jointly, right? You read this section 3 of this paper, okay. It's a nice discussion on how this originated, how this whole idea of simultaneous equation models originated, um, uh, and like the issues with modeling it in this way and so on. So you read this section 3. It's goes on till here, yeah. So read section 3, only section 3, okay? You can read the complete paper, that's not a problem, but for the assignment, you just have to read this section 3 of this paper, okay? So you read section 3 and then what you do is you write a note on section 3, okay? In your own words, explain what this section 3 is saying, okay? So you have a lot of degrees of freedom. You can you can add to it or you can express it in your words as you want, right? So it's open. So read section 3 of this paper and then basically write a note around 2000 words. So not more than 2000 words. It can be less than 2000 words, but not more than 2000 words. Write a note on section 3, basically explaining what it is trying to say. Okay. So if you want, you can use equations and explain it in equations. If you don't want to use equations, don't want to use math, you can avoid using math. But that is what you have to do. Okay. So is that clear? Do you have any questions on it? Do you understand what you have to do? Oh, okay. So can you hear me or? Okay. So do you understand what you have to do for your assignment? Any questions on that? Anything? How many people do we have here? We have 17 people. So I'll repeat it again. What you have to do is you have to go on to my web page, download this paper. I will also upload these details on your this Teams, okay, so that you have easy access. So you first look at your group assignment, see who your group members are, and then what you have to do is you have to read this paper, this one, okay. You have to focus on section 3 of this paper, which is this one. Read section 3, okay. Take your time, read it, and then write a short note on it, not more than 2000 words. And you have to type that note. You can type it on Word. If you are using a lot of equations, if you want to introduce math into your note, then you can also do it on LaTeX. You can also do it on Overleaf LaTeX. So I'll send you all those links, and that is what you have to do. So one group has to submit just one note, okay? So there will be in total there will be 12 notes, okay? One note per group. So you discuss, you read, you talk among yourselves, and then all three of you just submit one short note. And you can take your time doing this. You can submit this, let's say, how much time would you need for something like this? Maybe 26th of February, 1 month. I think that should be enough. So, and you can submit it by 26th of February, okay? So I'll email you all the details and I'll upload all these documents on Teams also, okay? So the deadline is 26th of February because after that you will start presenting. So let's get over with this assignment by February 26th and then you can start presenting. Okay. So if you have any questions, you can ask about the assignment, otherwise we will progress. Is this okay?
Yes, sir, the presentation will be a different assignment, or we have to present the same thing that we have presented in the note?
No. So what I'll do is I will no. So this is a combined assignment. Everybody has to do it. A presentation. What you will do is so if you would have gone through the course outline, there I have a list of papers. Okay. So we have all these papers which we have to go through. And let me see whether you can see this. So you have all these papers. These are all these papers we have to go through. So what I'll do is each group will be assigned one of these papers, and then you have to read it. Read that paper, prepare a set of slides, and then present it. So one group will just make one presentation. So you're basically the work will be split into all the three members, but you will present, but all three of you will present just one set of slides, okay? So that would be a different paper, not this one. Anything else? Okay, so let's continue with what we were talking about last time. So we were talking about fixed effects, okay? And so we were talking about fixed effects last time, right? And the problem was that we had an error term, and that error term had two objects. One was this unobserved variable lambda I, okay, and the other was this epsilon I was the IID error term, the noise term, the true error, okay, the residual. But this eta I, the composite error, had the true error term and an unobserved variable. Okay, it can be ability, it can be soil types, all those things. Okay. But now we have panel data. So by panel data, I mean each outcomes and this yi, di, all of these are observed over time for each individual. So this is observed over multiple periods of time. And so, you know, the same equation, the panel data counterpart of same equation can be written like this, where we'll just now we'll have another subscript which is t. So we'll have yit, dit, etit, where I denotes the individual, the unit, and t denotes the time period. Okay, and similarly, the error, the composite error that we have here, will also have a t subscript now. Okay. This, but what we are assuming here is that this lambda I, the unobserved variable, does not have a time subscript, meaning lambda I just varies across individuals but does not vary over time. Okay, so given that now we have panel data and we have this problem of this omitted variable lambda I, which does not vary over time, what we can do is we can model this or think of this as a fixed effect. Okay, and we can write it like this. So, but just substituting it, and then you can write this equation like this. So this intercept, now this becomes the intercept, but this intercept is now different for different individuals. So this model is also called the one-way fixed effects model, right? Because these are called fixed effects. And these vary only one way, only across individuals. They don't vary over time. And these lambdas can be many things. It can be there can be one omitted variable. There can be multiple omitted variables. These lambdas will capture all of those. Okay, so this lambda will be like it's going to give you like a linear combination of all those things. You cannot separate those into individual components, and I will do these things in Stata now. Another thing which I wanted to tell you was that I have uploaded the data. So for example, whenever I present any real life example in the class, I will upload all the data sets, the relevant data sets, and the replication files for that example. So what you can do is for example, you can go on to what we did in lecture 5. So we go on to lecture 5 and you can download the data set, relevant data set, and the replication file. And these are Stata data sets and Stata replication files. So you can download those data sets and you can basically run those codes and see what is happening. Okay, so it's all here. You can replicate these things. Okay, so this is basically with this unobserved variable, we can write it in this form. And the main benefit of having panel data is that, with cross section, when you are talking about, remember that example that you're working with agricultural income and training, that was a cross section. So in cross section, this lambda I cannot be accounted for, right? Because we just have one slice of time. But the benefit of having panel data is that since we follow these individuals over time, we have multiple observations for each individual for different time periods. This lambda I can be explicitly factored into the regression or modeled into the regression. So that's the benefit. So just having more data in this particular case, if suppose for identification, this was the only issue we had of an omitted variable, then just having more data would solve this problem, right? So you can simply estimate that as a fixed effects model, and delta will give you the your causal effect. And so this fixed effect model uses the estimator that we have in this particular case when we do a fixed effects estimation is called the fixed effects estimator or the within estimator. Okay, and last time we talked about this. In fact, you mentioned these things. So it's a very simple method of removing these lambdas using a fixed effects estimator. What you do is you take averages on both sides over time period of this equation. So then you have this yi bar, which is the time average of outcome for individual I, and similarly you can take a time average for this, and you subtract this equation from this equation. And since lambda is same in both, lambda gets cancelled out, and this is what you are left with. Remember, with this manipulation, this transformation of the data, essentially what this is saying is that before you run a simple OLS with panel data, if you want to remove these lambdas, what you have to do is you have to transform your outcomes and your treatment like this. You have to basically take time averages and remove those time averages. And then once you do that, you just have to estimate a simple OLS regression. And that simple OLS regression will actually give you the delta, this true delta, what we hypothesized. So, and this transformation removes lambda. It gets rid of that fixed effect. And notice that since you have demeaned everything on your both your dependent variable and your independent variable, the variation that you have now, the variation in outcome, let's say, or the treatment that you have now is within individual I, because the average for each individual you have subtracted, right? So it's now, so you have demeaned it, so that variation is now across the mean, right? The mean does not come into that, right? Into your variation. So when you do this transformation, you are using some degrees of freedom, because you first calculate the averages and then you subtract that. So you are using some degrees of freedom. So the degrees of freedom changes when you do this kind of an estimation, and these are the degrees of freedom. But the softwares, they automatically correct for these things. So you don't have to, while implementing this, you don't have to worry about correcting for degrees of freedom. Okay. So and another way of fixing this fixed effects problem is to have dummy variables. Like for example, if you have 10 individuals, 10 I's, you can have 9 dummy variables here, and those dummy variables can also account for these lambdas. In fact, so that kind of a model is called a least squares dummy variable model, and in fact, the least squares dummy variable model is exactly equivalent to this fixed effects model. So there is no difference. They will give you the exact same data, whether you have dummy variables explicitly in your regression or you do this kind of a transformation. They are exactly the same. Okay, so it does not matter. And when we go to Stata in a while, I'll show you how these two things are same. So LSDV or least squares dummy variable model is another way of solving this problem or removing this lambda. Okay. Another way of like removing this lambda or controlling for this lambda is through first differencing. You can also do differencing, and that would also get rid of this. So what is first differencing? And that's called the first difference estimator. So here is the original model that we were working with. You just take a lag of this equation, 1 period lag, so t minus 1. This again does not vary over time, so it will remain as it is. t minus 1 and t minus 1. Subtract this from this. Okay, you now have a difference here, yt minus yit minus yit minus 1. Again, these lambda i's gets cancelled. Okay, and then you have this and this. So now this is a different transformation, right? Here the transformation was to demean. But in this case, the transformation is to just subtract the lag, the lag term, 1 period lag term from the data, right? So lag and then difference. And now this equation can be expressed in terms of differences, first differences. So, but this also gets rid of the lambda I, the fixed effect. Okay, and this again, if you see this again, if you do this kind of a transformation, take a lag, 1 period lag, and then do a difference, this again will give you the true delta. Okay, so this also gives you the true delta. So it's up to you whether you do a first difference or you do a fixed effect, effects within use a fixed effects estimator or d-mean. But there is one issue when you do this kind of a transformation, when you do a first difference, and that is that these error terms, because of this transformation that you did, this differencing, the error terms now are correlated across time periods. So it artificially introduces, not artificially, the transformation itself introduces serial correlation in your error terms. Remember, we would have serial correlation here. We can have serial correlation here only because we have panel data. So each individual is followed over time, right? So so this, even if these epsilon ITs were uncorrelated to begin with over time, just transforming this into this way introduces serial correlation, and you can see it. It's easy to see that. So you write correlation epsilon it minus 1, you expand it, and you can do your algebra. And what you would see is that it would be this rho epsilon negative. So there would be an inverse correlation between in this difference equation, there would be an inverse correlation between the error terms. Okay, and that's the main feature of this first difference estimator, that if you do first difference, the delta that you will estimate, this delta would be the true delta. That's not a problem. But this transformation would introduce serial correlation in your error terms. So you have to be mindful of that. So you have to basically, when you are doing this kind of an estimation, you have to correct. You have to basically find some way of also accounting for your the serial correlation in the error terms. So right. So basically your error, the variance covariance matrix would have these additional terms now, and one has to account for that. So so what is happening is that it's becoming, like the efficiency, this is a problem with the efficiency of this estimate delta, because now error terms are serially correlated. So that's so first differencing is another way of fixing this problem. Another model, another way in which fixed effects are modeled is in which these lambda i's are modeled is called the random effects model. Okay, I will not spend too much time on random effects model because we generally don't use random effects, and we don't use this random effects model because it, there are very strong assumptions under which you can model lambda i's as random effects, and that assumption is that, remember, lambda I was the omitted variable in our case, and the assumption is that the covariance between the omitted variable and the treatment should be 0. So for you to model you to use random effects to model this kind of a relationship, This is the assumption you should be making. And you know, this assumption, if this assumption was true, then a simple OLS would give us the will give us the true causal effect, this delta, right? So that's the whole problem that we are dealing with, that this covariance is not zero and we have an omitted variable. Bias. So random, and but suppose if this assumption was true, you could model this as random effects. And random effects, basically what it is saying is something like this. It's basically these lambdas will go into the error terms, and these lambdas, because these lambdas are in error terms, it would basically create heteroscedasticity and serial correlation in your error terms. And so the random effects model will basically correct for that. It only deals with efficiency, but it does not talk about at all about the delta estimate that we have. So we will not talk much about random effects, because this assumption is at least in this literature, I think, is a bit it won't be true in most of the cases. So, but we should know that there is another additional model, which is the random effects model.
Sir?
Yeah.
So just a clarification. Sir, in the fixed effects model, do we have any assumption on the error term?
No. It's so.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, for example, say that I find a correlation between the treatment and the lambda I. And once I account for the omitted variables, I find it's now become a random effects model. As in, there are variables which do not correlate with DIT as well, and we've not included them. So, I mean, if we put an assumption on the error term, then it's like we can avoid that kind of a problem, right?
See, the thing is, random effects model is the way random effects model fixes this issue is through a GLS kind of an estimation. What it would do is, it would, under very strong assumption, it would basically imagine a variance covariance matrix. Okay. And then it would estimate those objects from the variance covariance matrix from the data itself, and then it would plug them there, and then it would weight the whole regression to correct for those the problem. But I remember I've said this earlier also. The convention here is that you don't meddle with the variance covariance matrix like that. So you don't put assumptions on what kind of a structure do you have in your error terms. And what you would do is, and I will talk about that, what you rather do is you correct for the standard errors. So you would use something called robust standard errors. And those robust standard errors can account for all sorts of patterns in your variance covariance matrix. So what this means is that random effects model would imagine or put a structure on the variance covariance matrix, a particular structure. But the alternative correction that we do does not put a structure. It is general enough to account for all sorts of correlations and all those things. And applied microeconomics, we have other problems. So we have bigger problems, which are generally the kind of data that we deal with in applied microeconomics is survey data, okay, or regional data, data which has a strong spatial dimension. And that sort of a data exhibits something called clustering. So clustering would be that, for example, the NSS surveys that we generally use, you in each district, some villages are randomly selected, and then in those villages, some individuals are selected. So the way it's done, it introduces something called clustering in the data, and that clustering is a type, it's that clustering actually means something for the error term. So that clustered effects are all going to errors. And in that particular situation, it's very hard to write down a structure for the error terms, right? Like how the random effects would do it. So rather we use a more general way of correcting for standard errors. So it's not that we ignore what you are saying. The variables that are going into the error terms may create issues for how we estimate our standard errors, but we deal with that in a different way through robust standard errors. Okay. Any other question?
Sir, I had a question.
Yeah.
So, sir, in the fixed effects model, all the fixed effects such as lambda I are not needed during the estimation. So, while working with panel data in real life, do we need to specify the fixed effects variables and collect data on them?
No. I'll tell you. I'll just once we go through this, I will take you through an example of how we do fixed effects. And then you don't have to collect data on fixed effects. It's a very simple thing, the very simple transformation that you have to do. In fact, in softwares, you don't even have to do that. You just type a code y, x, and it will automatically do that for you. Okay. Any other question? Okay, so we talked about two estimators which we are going to use, which are relevant for us for this particular course, the fixed effects and the first difference. And remember the fixed effects, the fixed effects estimator or the within estimator is equivalent to having dummy variables for all those fixed effects. So that's equal. If you have just two time periods, okay, if you have just two time periods, the fixed effects estimator or the within estimator where you demean and the first difference estimator are exactly the same. So it does not matter whether you do a demeaning or you do a first difference. When you have just two time periods, each individual observed for two time periods, they are identical, exactly identical. For t greater than 2, for time periods more than 2, the fixed effects and first difference will not give you identical results. There would be some difference. Okay, there would be some difference in the delta estimated from the fixed effects model or from the first difference model. But both of them are unbiased. Okay. But as we saw, the first difference model will lead to first differencing will lead to serial correlation. So in general, the fixed effects estimator, the demeaning procedure is more efficient than the first difference, right? So efficiency wise, it's better to do a first fixed effects. And for the kind of data sets that we work with in development economics or in applied microeconomics have generally the N is very large. So you will have lots of units, individuals, 10,000, 5,000 lakhs. But the time dimension is very small. So we have, like, for example, we'll have data for 10,000 individuals for 10 time periods. So in that particular case where N is very large and T is very small, which are, most of the data sets are like that in this kind of literature in development economics, we generally use fixed effects model. Okay, rarely will you see people doing first differences. I mean, there are exceptions where people use first differences, but most of the time people would be using fixed effects. But when your T is larger than N, or T is also large. So for example, suppose you're looking at, so when you're looking at individuals, a lot of individuals, 10,000 individuals followed over 10 time periods, Then fixed effects model is the appropriate one. But when the time dimension increases, when t is large, so for example country level data where you have, let's say, you're looking at a panel of 30 countries and for 60 time periods. Okay, in that case, when you have that sort of a panel, then first difference may be the more relevant one. Okay, because as your time dimension increases, you start worrying more about serial correlation over time. So what happens is that this n or n and t dimension. So when the t is larger than the n, or t is large enough, let's say t is greater than 30, 30 or more than 30, then you start worrying about time series properties of the data becoming dominant, right? Serial correlation and so on. So then in those cases, you may want to use the first difference estimator. Although you can also estimate the fixed effects estimator, and you can, basically report the results from both of them, but there is no general consensus whether this first difference is better or fixed effects is better. It depends upon the kind of application that you are dealing with. Okay. But another thing which works in favor of the fixed effects model is that, when you have unbalanced panel, and by unbalanced, I mean that, when you have some missing observations. For example, when we look at firm data, generally in industrial organization theory, people look at firm level data. So they follow firms over time. They look at their productivity and so on. And in those cases, firms may enter or exit from the market, right? So what happens is that a firm may be there for 5 years, and then after 5 years it exits, dissolves. Okay, so use that the data for the after 5 years, you don't have that data, right? Because the firm stopped existing. Similarly, a firm may appear after 5 years, right? So entry and exit of individuals or firms or whatever, or missing data may lead to an unbalanced panel where for all units you don't observe all time periods. In those particular cases, what would happen is that if you do a first difference, there may be a problem, right? Because if you are missing a time period for an individual, then that first difference, you cannot do a first difference. So will have to drop all those observations. So for doing a first difference, you need all the time periods for all individuals. Otherwise, doing a first difference would mean dropping some data where you have missing data and all those things. So that's the problem with first difference, that you need a neat rectangular data set where you have all the individuals and all the time periods. But when you do a first fixed effects estimator, when you do a demeaning, then you don't have to drop anything, right? You can just calculate the averages for whatever time periods they are available and demean them. So that's another thing worth considering while picking which one to use for the first difference or fixed effect. So that's about the first difference and fixed effect estimator. And then like we have had lambda i's in the previous example, you can also think of a fixed effect which does not vary across individuals but just varies over time. So like lambda i's, you can also imagine mu-t's here. Okay, what would these mu-t's be? Like, for example, in lambda I, we talked about what these lambda i's can be. So these lambda i's can be things like, going back to the example that we were talking about, agricultural productivity and training program. These lambda i's could be soil quality, natural condition, geography, policies, those kind of things, right? So weather conditions which don't vary over time, geographical location, slope, altitude, temperature, mean temperature, or those kind of things. They may not vary over time, but they vary across individual. Similarly, you can think of fixed effects which vary only over time but does not vary across individuals. And what would those things may be? Those things may be macroeconomic aggregate shocks. So, for example, this the COVID, this pandemic is an aggregate macroeconomic shock. So, if suppose you are studying some like estimating a model from data where some data is from time period before the pandemic and some data is from time period after the pandemic, we know that in this time period there was an aggregate shock, and so that aggregate shock itself may have changed the relationship between the outcome and the treatment that we are thinking of here. So this mu t is exactly like lambda I. The only difference is that it, rather than varying across individuals, it varies across time periods. And this mu t will account for those kinds of aggregate shocks that may, if omitted, that may also confound your delta, right? So oil price shocks, for example, which global oil price shocks are aggregate shocks. Something like this COVID pandemic is an aggregate shock which has to be controlled for, because omitting after the pandemic, the relationship between yi and dit itself has changed. So, so anything which you think is an aggregate shock which all individuals will face, like simultaneously, goes into this mu t. Okay, and a similar, a similar demeaning strategy can deal with this time fixed effect. So we call these time fixed effects, or mu t. A similar strategy can be used for dealing with this time fixed effects also. So here in this case, when you have these two fixed effects, and this is called the two-way fixed effects model, because you have two-way fixed effects here. One which does not vary over individuals but varies over time. One which does not vary over time but varies over individuals. You can do two-way demeaning. Okay, so for example, like before, you can first do a time average of this equation. So yi, like yi bar is the time average, lambda I, mu t varies over time, so you will have a mu bar, and then di bar and epsilon I bar. You can do another demeaning on another dimension, which is the I. So in this case, we are taking the average over individuals for each time period. So here we were taking the average of each individual over time periods. Here we are taking the average across all individuals over each time period. So you can do this, okay, lambda bar, mu t, delta bar t, and so on. And then you can subtract both of these from this original equation. Okay. So lambda I gets cancelled from here, and mu t gets cancelled from here, these two mu t, right? And what you are left with, these mu bar and lambda bar, which is gamma, which goes into the gamma term. These averages, these are just constant, like just constants, intercept terms. And then you will have delta and like dit minus di bar minus dt bar. So again, as you see, we can do demeaning, two-way demeaning, and we can remove these two fixed effects, the lambda i's and the mu t's, and same as before, right? So again, degrees of freedoms would change because you are using some degrees of freedom to calculate these two averages. But again, whatever software you use will adjust for these changes automatically. And You can also use dummy variables, time dummy variables to account for these muties as for lambda. So you can do that too. I'll show you how we do this in Stata, and I'll actually show you what these lambdas and muties look like, and hopefully that will clarify what I'm talking about. Okay, so dummy variables for individuals can also remove the unobserved individual effect. Okay, dummy variables for year can remove time effect. So dummy variables for individuals can remove lambda i's, and dummy variables for year or time can remove muties. And then fixed effects in cross section. Let me not.
Sir.
Yeah. Yes.
Sir, again we get the same effects, estimates.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes. 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 So let me not go through more stuff and just show you some like show you this on Stata to make clarify what is happening here. Okay, can you see my screen? You probably cannot see it. Share content. Okay, so can you see my screen now? There is a state. I've opened Stata. Can you see Stata on my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so okay,
Yes,
yeah. So this data set that I'm using. Do I have to share these things individually, or what? How can I share all of this?
Sir, you can share the desktop. That's
Oh,
there.
okay. Yeah.
The leftmost.
Thanks. So I'm using this data set, which is already there on, it's there in Stata itself. So you can call it whenever you want. So this data set and these do files are there on my website, so you can download them and work through them yourself. So so I'm just calling the data from, so web use NLS work. This is the data set NLS work, and web use this command would call this data set from the web. So it's there uploaded on Stata directory, and when you run this code, it calls that data online into Stata. Okay, and this is a panel data of individuals. And so let me show you the data set. So here is the data set. Okay, so you have this variable ID code. Can you see ID code?
Yes, sir.
yes, sir.
So this ID code variable tracks the individual. Okay, so each ID here is just one individual. So for example, focus on this 11111. Okay, so we have 1 repeating 12 times. Okay, and so basically this 1 is denoting a single individual followed over time. And here are the years. So individual 1 was followed from 70 to 88. So 1970, 1971, 72, 73, 5, 7, whatever, 88. Okay. So each individual I, so IT, remember we were talking panel data, we were talking about I and T. So each individual I, this is the ID code, and the T is this year time period. Okay. And then we have individual 2 data for individual 2 over time, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on. Okay. So you can, so this data is there on our uploaded in Stata, and essentially this data is for, this data is from the National Longitudinal Survey. It's a very long running survey from the US, and what it has is, it's basically it's following young women from 14 to 26 years of age. Okay, starting from 1970 to all the way to 80s, and it has collected data on their like their things like their age, their race, whether they are married, what kind of education do they have, where are they employed, whether they are member of union or not, labor unions, and then their work hours, their tenures, and finally they have data on their wages, real wages. So this right at the end you have log wage deflated by the GDP, GDP deflator. So real wage. So women followed over time, and essentially we are interested in their wage rates. Okay, so we observe their wage rates over time for all these time periods, and we also know about their educational background and their characteristics, demographics, and so on. So this is what this data is. And so you can tabulate, you can tab ID code here to see too many values. So we have tabulate year. You can tabulate year, and so it's basically giving you the distribution of years. Okay, so 68, 69, 70, 71. On average, if you see, although this is an unbalanced panel, and how do I know that this is an unbalanced panel? Because, for example, let's say this is 1968. For 1968, this number, this frequency here is telling you how many individuals are there in this data sets, how many women are there in this data sets for 1968. So it's 1375. 69, it's the number changes. 70, the number changes. Then in 77, we have 2171 women in the data set. Then it again goes down. Then it goes up. And in 88, we have 2272 women in this data set. So what you see here is that over time, the number of women that are there in this data set vary. So it's not constant. So that means some women go out from this data set and some women come into this data set. We don't know. So this is an unbalanced panel, right? Because it's for all individuals we don't observe all the years. Some years would be missing. So that's the thing. So before you before you run a fixed effects model, and so for example, what we are interested in here, let's say, is this relationship between log wages and number of working hours that you have. Okay, so we want to see whether the work hours that you have in a day, does that influence your wage, real wage or not? Okay, so REG is the stata command for running a simple OLS regression. Okay, so you type REG base is OLS. So REG, your dependent variable, whatever that may be, and then the independent variable or the treatment, right? And if you run this code, it will give you the regression output. Okay, so it tells you the number of, yeah. Yes.
Sir, I just wanted to clarify a few points.
Yes.
What is the objective of this study? And sir, if we have about 2,272 observations, I mean, there are 2,272 different individuals, right?
Yes. Yes.
So will we have that many dummies?
No, I'll come to that. I'll come to the dummies part.
Okay, sir.
The objective of this study was to, this data is basically was used, labor economists are interested in these kind of things. Okay. Work hours, basically number of work hours denote, in a way, is also a measure of efficiency. So it's where is it? Birth year. Must be usual work hours. So simple explanation of this is that, you want to see whether the amount of work hours that you have in a day, does that influence your wage rate? So if you work more, do you get more wage? Okay. The objective,
Okay, sir.
why would you like to study this, can be, like variety of reasons for this, right? If you find that working more gives you higher wage, then in terms of policy, what can you say? You can say that increase work hours, right? If you want to increase, let's say if you want to increase wage rates for individuals, one policy implication, a very crude policy implication would be that raise work hours by, let's say, 1 hour, additional 1 hour, and so on. But it's not obvious whether there is a linear relationship between work hours and wage rate, because and you may think of many examples for why that may not be obvious. So you can do a simple OLS regression through this command and state reg, your y variable, and your outcome and your treatment, and it would throw up all of this output. Okay. So it tells you the observations that it has used. It gives you the F statistic, the significance of the regression itself. It gives you the probability, the p-value for the F statistics, that it's highly statistically significant. So this regression is significant. Tells you the R square, the explained variation, and the root mean square error. Okay. And then what we are interested in is this block. So it's giving you the R beta coefficient, delta, beta, whatever you may call it, the slope. Here is the intercept term. These are the associated standard errors for the slope, for the intercept, and T is just the coefficient divided by the standard error. So this is the T stat. Okay. Then the p-value, and then the confidence, 95% confidence interval for the estimated, the estimate. Okay. So this is what Stata gives you, a simple regression output. And then it will also provide here the degrees of freedom details. Okay, how many degrees of freedom calculations, and squared, sum of squared, residual, and all that information. So so this is what we observe. We observe that hours, the more you work, the higher wage you get. Okay, so there is a positive association between work hours and log wage. And if we don't know better, if we think that this model is enough, we may say that this is causal. So we may say working more hours means higher wages. Okay, so if I want to earn more, I can just work for greater hours. So that's what this relationship tells you. Okay? But this is panel data, right? So this is panel. So can you think of some omitted variable in this kind of a relationship, which may be different across individuals but may not vary over time, which may confound this relationship? So anything?
Experience.
Yeah. Yes, experience. Anything else?
In which sector you work?
Yes. And education. Right? Education. What about race? So in US, race is a big deal in the US, blacks versus whites. Do you think race would have an influence on this relationship, whether you are a black or a white?
Yes, sir, it will have an effect.
Right. So race is a big deal, and a lot of literature in the context of US labor market which shows that race is a big determinant of these labor market outcomes. So race is, as you know, is yeah. Yes.
Sir, same is case in case for caste in India, sir.
Exactly. So in India, the Indian counterpart is caste. So these things like educational background, race, caste, experience, all those things, and then ability. All these things you can observe. You can observe their race, you can observe their experience. But what about ability? Some individuals may be more able, some individuals may accomplish much more in less hours than others, right? The kind of job that you are doing. So all of these variables may confound what we are actually trying to establish here. So, so this simple regression is, we know that will not give us what we want, will not give us the causal relationship. But since we have panel data here, we are following these individuals over time. We know that we can knock out, remove those lambda i's, those time invariant omitted variables through fixed effects. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll first estimate a fixed effects model, and then I'll do the same thing with. I will not be able to do this with a least squares dummy variable, or because we have a lot of individuals here. But let me see, maybe I can do an AREC. So okay, so before you run a, so what we want to do now is, we know there are certain omitted variables, and for the time being we are just thinking of time invariant individual specific omitted variables. So we are thinking of that one-way fixed effect model where we have just lambda i's. You can see that here we can also have a mu t, but for the time being forget about having a mu t here. Okay, just focus on the lambda I. So to run a fixed effects regression in Stata, you have to tell Stata that this is a panel data. Stata does not know that this is panel data. Okay, so to inform Stata that this is panel, you use this command. So this is ts set. So basically it tells Stata that you have a panel variable and a time variable. So what you do is you type ts set id code. Id code records the individual IDs. Remember 111, 222, and so on. And here are the time periods. So you do ts set id code here. So you run this in Stata and you will get this output. So it has now recorded the IDs, individual IDs, and the time periods. Okay, and it will tell you. So it's telling you what is the panel variable. So it's telling you the panel variable is ID code, and it's saying that it is unbalanced. So it's not balanced, which we solved earlier also. Okay, and then it would tell you the time period. So it will tell you the year goes from 68 to 88, but with gaps. So what it's saying is that there are some missing observations here. Okay, so the panel is unbalanced. And delta is the difference. So delta is the, is it an annual panel data? Is it a 5-year panel data? Or is it a monthly data? What kind of panel data is it? So this delta is telling you 1 unit, meaning between these two time periods, there is 1 year gap. So 68, 69, so on. Okay, so now Stata knows that this is a panel data. So once you ts set, then you can estimate a fixed effects model. So the code for the command for running a fixed effect model is xtreg. Okay, so for OLS it was reg, but for fixed effects it's xt. So x and t stands for the individuals and the time period. So xtreg, your y variable, your the treatment that you're interested in, and then comma, after a comma we write fe. So fe says that estimate a fixed effects model. Okay, so if you change fe by re, then it's going to estimate a random effect model. Okay. If you type fe, it estimates a fixed effects model. So when you do this, now you have this kind of an output. Okay, similar to what we had when we did a simple OLS. But notice, before I talk about anything else, notice what has happened to this coefficient now. Okay, so this was the coefficient when we didn't account for the fixed effects, when we didn't demean our data. Okay, so this was the coefficient and this was the significance, statistical significance. Now notice what has happened. Okay. So the coefficient on R's has gone down. quite a lot, right? And now we are like barely statistically significant at, so this is statistically significant at 10% level of significance. But so almost not there. So the relationship that we were thinking of is almost not there. Just by just accounting for those lambda i's. Okay. So same as before, it's going to give you, so it tells you the number of observations that the data has. It tells you number of groups. So the number of groups are basically how many individuals do we have in this data followed over time. So actually in this data set, we have 4,710 women. Okay. And observations per group, it's telling you on average, we observe for an individual on average, we observe 6 time periods. The minimum that we observe for an individual is 1 time period. So there are some individuals in this data set for which we observe just 1 time period, and the maximum goes to 15. So this is what this information is telling you. Then again, it gives you the F statistic, the significance of the regression, and the p-value for that F. And it's giving you 3 kinds of R squares. Okay, the within R square, the between R square, and then the overall R square. Notice that the overall R square figure that we have here is exactly the same as the R square of the OLS regression, right? So basically this R square that we have here in this fixed effects regression is the R square for the OLS, simple OLS. So it's overall. So it's the overall explained variation, the simple OLS explained variation. The within R square is what is the R square when we do this demeaning procedure. Okay, so after demeaning, the R square that we have is this one. And then there is this between R square, and I will talk about what this between R square is. I'll estimate a between regression and then tell you what that is. Okay. So right at the bottom, what you observe is so this is it also reports, it does an F stat, so basically all the lambda i's that we have in these regressions, that we removed through fixed effects, do those lambda i's statistically significantly matter in this regression? Are they jointly statistically significant? This is what this F test does here. Okay, so it's telling you whether all those omitted lambda i's that we have removed through demeaning, whether all those lambda i's are 0. So the null here is that whether all those lambda i's are 0. Okay, and that null is rejected. So what this means is that those fixed effects are actually relevant in this regression. If suppose this null was not rejected here, then it didn't matter for us whether we do XTREG or do OLS. But what this is saying is that all those fixed effects are jointly statistically significant and has to be included in the regression. So this is what, so a simple demeaning exercise here basically changes, our estimate, reduces our estimate quite a lot. Okay. And you see, accounting for all those omitted variables that we had, time invariant omitted variables has reduced our estimate. So now another thing which I wanted to show you was that when we have fixed effects in a regression, or when we are estimating a fixed effects regression, you cannot have regressors, you cannot have independent variables in your regression which do not vary over time. Okay, it cannot estimate coefficients on variables which don't vary over time. So for example, in this regression, I add race. Okay, now race does not vary over time. Race of an individual, whether that woman is black or white, does not vary over time. So race now is omitted from the regression, right? Since race does not vary over time, In a fixed effects regression, it's dropped automatically. Okay, Stata drops it because you cannot estimate a time invariant coefficient of the coefficient on a time invariant variable with a fixed effect model. Okay, because all of those now go into the fixed effects. So race will drop out. Anything which does not vary over time will basically be dropped out from the regression automatically. So you cannot run that. Simple regression, race will not drop out. So if you see, so here I estimated a simple regression with R's and race. So you can see that race, I guess one would be black and two is black and one is white. So okay, so I should do an I dot. So we have white, black, and other. So if I generate a dummy variable for race, gen. So if I do tab race, race is a categorical variable which has three categories: white, black, and other. And what I've done is I tabulate it and then say gen a dummy variable for each category. So now Stata has done that for me. So race 1 is white, race 2 is black, and race 3 is other. So race 1 is 1 if the individual is white and 0 otherwise. Race 2 is 1 if the individual is black and 0 otherwise, and so on. So in this regression, if I now include a dummy variable for black, so race 2 is 1 if the individual is black and 0 otherwise. We observe that being a black itself is associated with getting less wages in the labor market. Okay, so there it's negative and statistically significant, right? But we cannot see this coefficient on race when we do a fixed effect. So if we do a fixed effect situation, the black dummies drops out, right? So we cannot see that. So that's another important thing. Then what is the between effects estimator? So there, what is this? So like this also gives you this. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So here we saw that race was statistically significant when we ran the regression altogether, and when we accounted for the fixed effects, we didn't even consider race as a variable. So,
it's not. Your voice is not clear. Can you?
Sure. Here, firstly, when we considered race in the pooling model altogether, so there race came out to be statistically significant.
Yes.
And in the fixed effects model, we didn't even consider the race variable because it got deleted. So what is the interpretation of race here? Means the coefficient of race here?
When we were not using fixed effects.
Yes, sir.
So there is no interpretation. I mean, like, of course, as we don't know what is this being driven by, but it's an interesting correlation. What it's saying is that on average, a black person is getting less wage than a white person. That's the interpretation. So basically, it's saying that our dependent variable is log wage. So this, you can interpret this in percentage terms. So it's basically saying that if you are a black, you get approximately on average 15% less wages than a white person.
Sir, but in fixed effects model, since there is no coefficient of race, can we say that this race is controlled for other factors? For example, people who are black might have lesser education and thus get lesser wages. Is this a fair way to interpret that?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Because you are right. Of course, it's possible that black people may have less education or are coming from less work experience, all those things. So of course that will be true, but as just you can think of it as a summary statistic. Okay, it's just saying that black individuals on average, you observe for black individuals on average that their wages are 15% lower than the white individuals. So it's just like a summary stat. Yeah.
I have a confusion. For example, in the first, when you run a fixed effect regression, you have to define what level of fixed effects you are running. Either you are running individual level fixed effect or you are running race level fixed effect. So in the first regression, was it individual level fixed effect? For example, you have 28,000 individuals, so you introduced one less dummy, like 27,999 dummy.
No. So first of all, we don't have 28,000 individuals. We have around 4,000 women followed over around how many time periods?
Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. 4,000. So was it individual level fixed effect?
Yes. Right. See, this is panel. This is a panel data. So when you do a TS set, so we did a TS set. So TS set by design will identify it as panel. So by panel, I mean by IT, where I here in this case is women, 4,000 women, and T is the time periods, the years from 68 to 88. So going back to the model that I showed you, this is the model that we are estimating. This one. Okay. So here is our women. Okay, and T are those time periods. Y in our case in this example is log wage for women I in time period T, and DIT is our working hours for women I in time period T, and these lambda i's are the fixed effects. Okay, so they are at the individual level. Right?
Okay, sir, understood. Thank you.
So going back to what we were talking about. So this what is this between R square? Okay, we know what the within R square is. Within R square is the R square of the OLS regression after demeaning. Okay, so basically the R's, going back to the slides, the R square of this regression. So once you demean and you run this regression, the R square of this regression is this within R square, which is this. Overall, we know is just the simple OLS R square. This between R square is this. So you can run a between regression. So you can type BE here, comma BE, and it will give you a between regression. So between regression it's basically what it's doing is that it's running this regression, going again back to what these slides. So this is a between regression. Okay. So this is our actual data. We take time averages on both sides. So summation T over Y and similarly summation T DIT. You get this regression. So this regression is called the between. If you run this regression is called the between regression. Okay. And once you subtract this between this from this, you get the within regression. So this is the overall, okay, the between and the within, right? So that R square that is being reported as between is an R square of regression like this, where you are running a regression on average outcome for individual I over all time periods and average treatment for individual I's over all time periods. So this is what that between regression is, and you can in Stata you can do it very simply. You can write your xtreg y x and then be, and it will give you the between regression. Okay, so and so here I just show you what between regression. You can basically take averages of log work hours and your log wage and work hours, and then you run a simple OLS, and that will also give you a between estimate. So let me do this. And so notice what has happened now. So when I did collapse mean log wage work hours by ID code, what I am saying is that calculate the averages of wages and work hours by for each individual over time. So if now we look at the data, notice what has happened. We just have the ID, the time dimension has gone now because we have averaged over the time dimension. So we have just ID. So this has now become a cross section. It has essentially become a cross section where we don't have time dimension. Okay, but these are average wages over time periods for each individual and average work hours. And you can and then you can run a simple OLS regression. Okay, and here is your the regression output for the between regression. And this R squared is the R square which is reported here. So the between R square. So that's what a between regression is. And this equation. So we are running this equation. This is what we have. So you can find these averages and then you subtract these and then you have the within regression. So that's just some technicalities of the fixed effects model. So just to show you the least square dummy variable, we can also do this by dummy variables. The problem is that it's a computing problem. So we have a lot of individuals here. Okay, so Stata will not be able to generate so many dummy variables very quickly. Although you can do it, like we have 4,000 individuals here, so you can do generate 4,000 dummy variables and add that to your simple OLS regression, but it's going to take some time. So for to save on time, what I'll do is I'll drop certain individuals from the data set, so reduce the size of the data set. Okay. So what I'm doing here in line 22 is keep if ID code is less than equal to 100. So I'm just keeping 100 individuals, dropping the rest of them, so that it becomes easier to have dummy variables. Okay. And then again, I am telling Stata Stata that this is a panel data and record ID code as the individual ID and year as the time dimension. So I do that, and now our data set is shorter. I have dropped those individuals. Same, you can run a simple OLS regression and a fixed effects regression. So this simple OLS regression and then the fixed effects regression on this truncated data set. And then here is the least squares dummy variable regression. So very simple. You to run in Stata, to tell Stata that you have to make these dummy variables, what you have to do is you have to just write I dot in front of that variable. So ID code, remember, is our individual ID. So it tells you the ID of each individual. So I do I dot ID code. So I dot ID code tells Stata that this is a dummy variable. Okay, I dot tells Stata that it's a dummy variable. So keep that as a dummy variable. So when I run this regression, notice now what you observe. Same as before, this is the output that we have. FStat. Notice the R square now. Okay, R square is 0.63. Whereas if we look at a regression, simple regression without those dummy variables, the R square was almost zero, nothing. Okay. So the R square with fixed effects, with all these dummy variables, the R square has jumped quite a lot. Okay. And all these coefficients that these are all fixed effects. So these are all individual dummies. It's starting from 2 because 1 is omitted. Okay, so the base category is individual 1, and then you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so on. And so these are the coefficient estimates on those dummy variables that we have. Okay, and then we have the coefficient on work hours. So these are your individual fixed effects. Okay, so lambda 1 is this, lambda 2 is this, lambda 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, so on. Okay. And you can actually so all these are in difference form. So since one is omitted, but you can actually calculate the coefficients on each dummy variable by doing margins ID code. Okay, so margins, if you do margins, it tells data that you calculate the marginal effects or the actual coefficients of that covariable. So if I do margins ID code, so here are now all those individual coefficients starting from 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. The difference was that here it was all these coefficients, as we know, were differences from the base category, right? These are all differences from the base omitted category. Here now these are in level forms. Okay, so so this is individual one's average wage. Okay, intercept, right? So the unconditional average, individual 2, individual 3. So all these individuals have these different average wages or these different fixed effects, time invariant fixed effects. And these fixed effects were influenced by a variety of things. So this is what you get. Okay, so things like race, education, training, experience, all those things are subsumed in these coefficients. So it's basically a combination of all those individual factors which jointly were there in those dummy variables. And another thing to notice is that, so look at this coefficient on R's that we have 0.001972. And then we look at the coefficient on the fixed effect model 0.001972, exactly the same. The standard would be exactly the same. The t-stat would be exactly the same. The coefficient would be exactly the same. So either you do d-meaning or you do this way, explicitly have dummy variables for all those individuals there. It's going to give you the same estimate. Does not matter. They are exactly the same, right? So they are equivalent. Within estimation or a least squares dummy variable estimation are equivalent. And you can also plot these margins plot. So we can plot these fixed effects, like in a graph to see the variation across individuals. So here is the variation in these fixed effects across individuals. See, there is quite a lot of variation here. Okay. So these bars are showing you those coefficients on those dummy variables, and these and it also shows you the confidence intervals in these caps that you see on these bars. So you see quite a lot of variation in those intercepts on dummy variables across individuals. So those intercepts may be influenced by race, caste, ability, so on and on. And we don't, but we don't individually identify them. We just remove them through these dummy variables. Okay. So it's time. It's 11 o'clock now. I wanted to also, show you a two-way fixed effects model. So, similarly, like we did for I, you can have dummy variables for year 2. So same regression as before, log wage, I.id code. So it's saying that, okay, have dummy variables for each individual, and then I.year. So it's saying now have dummy variables for year 2. So the model that I'm considering now is this one. Okay. So now we have lambda i's and mu t's, and I am explicitly adding dummy variables for both of them. Right. So this is lambda ID code, and this is mu t. Okay. So here is the regression output. Again, you see these are again all of those coefficients on those dummy variables, individual dummy variables, and then these are the coefficients on the year dummies. Okay, and let me show you what these we have already seen how those fixed effects look like in a graph, but let me show you how these year dummies look like in a graph. I should plot it as a line. So now look at these. So these are just the year dummies. Okay. Now look at the pattern of year dummies. Okay. It's basically, it's what is it showing you? It's showing that over time real wages have increased. Okay. Right. And the real wages may have increased over time just because the country has now become, the country has grown in per capita income terms, or because of development. So real wages may rise because of aggregate growth and development in a country. So these are those time dummy variables. Okay, so these are trending upwards. There are some variation. There is some variation in the in this trend, but in general it shows an increasing rising trend, and this trend may be driven by economic development, right, over time. So if we omit that this trend in real wages over time and working hours over time, this increase in wages because of economic development may be there in the residual error term and may confound our estimate. So let's say, for example, that wages increase over time because of economic development. A country becomes richer. And working hours also increase over time because now people shift from, let's say, industries working in manufacturing where you can only work for a certain period of time to services sector where you can work the entire day sitting in front of your computer. So working hours may also increase over time because of economic development and structural transformation, and wages may also go up because the country has become richer. So the regression that we run, wages as the dependent variable and working hour as the independent variable, may give us a spurious positive relationship because of economic development, because of omitted economic development, right? Trends in increase in economic development and structural change. But once you include these time dummies, you remove that part. And that part is shown by that the changes in wages because of that growth and development over time is actually captured by these time dummy variables. And this plot shows you that, okay, these are real wages. So this changes in real wages. So this is what time dummies and country dummies look like. So I think we should end the class. It's 11:07 now. If you have any questions, you can ask. Any questions about assignment, anything?
Sir, I have a question regarding the fixed effects.
Yeah.
So, sir, does this fixed effect regression tells a causal story, or is it still a correlation?
It depends upon what structure you have in mind. Okay, if we think that suppose this is what we were planning to do, we were trying to see the causal effect of working hours on wages. So that's what we were trying to do, and the only issues, the only omitted variables that we had were things like ability and education, race, and all those things which are in time invariant. And then things like aggregate shocks, economic development, structural change. If those were the only issues, those are the only issues, only omitted variables that we think are there in this relationship, then this two-way fixed effect model will give you the causal effect. So once you do this two-way fixed effect, what the coefficient that you get on the estimate that you get on the hours, you can interpret that as causal. Okay, so it depends upon the structure that you have in mind. But it under like in many situations, under many kinds different structures, a simple two-way fixed effects will give you the causal effect.
So that is the question exactly. Does introducing individual level fixed effects or the time level fixed effects both together controls for entire universe of confounding variables?
Not the entire universe, but quite a lot of factors.
And so other thing that I was thinking that we can develop a Rubin's causal type story here. For example, we have work hours as outcome and work hours as treatment and wage rate as outcome. So if we give a policy shock of increasing work hours, so that becomes our treatment group, and then we observe the increase in wage rate due to increased work hours.
Right.
And here our control group and treatment group are same individuals. I mean, we don't have a selection bias kind of problem here if we do it properly.
You can.
So
yes, you can. You can in fact interpret this regression in that framework also. Although work hours is a continuous variable, so it's not 1 and 0. But if imagine if you had 1 and 0 work hours, 1 if you are working, 0 if you are not working, you can think of that same story, this same story in that framework. Yes, you can do that. Any other question?
no, sir. That's
Sir,
thank you.
so by this logic, so when we have a panel data, should we outright apply a two-way fixed effect model?
No, see, what you do, what the empirical model that you estimate depends upon what the hypothesis that you have in mind. Okay. It depends. So in this particular case, we are worried about individual level omitted factors. So in labor economics, people are really worried about ability, which is unobserved and omitted. So in that case, in this context, ability, controlling for ability with fixed effects is very important. Similarly, macroeconomic changes will influence labor market outcomes definitely. So time fixed effects are very important. So in this case, this setup, both time and individual fixed effects are critical to say anything causal. But it depends on what kind of question you are interested in. In certain cases, you may have to go for a more stringent fixed effect specification. So later on, we will talk about, so here it's a simple two-way fixed effects model where we have individual dummies and time dummies. But you can have more complicated fixed effect specifications where you may have, let's say these individuals are in different states in the US. So you can do individual fixed effects, and then you can do state cross time dummies or state dummies interacted with time dummies. So that is a more stringent specification. So for example, if these individuals are in different states and states have passed different laws regarding labor unions or working hours or those things, minimum wage laws, let's say, for example, then a simple time dummy will not account for state level differences in policies. So in that particular case, you may have to go for state cross time dummies, which would be a more stringent specification, a more robust specification. So it depends upon your context and what do you think will confound your estimate. What kind of a thing would confound. So it varies. Anything else?
Sir, I had a doubt regarding the last class.
Yes.
So, sir, if we have a model that in reality that y variable depends on a certain number of x variables, like x1, 2, 3, 4 till 10, and here x1 is our treatment variable, but the x's are such that they are all independent of each other.
Right.
So, sir, if I just estimate a model with the x variable, will the estimates of the beta coefficient be unbiased because the covariance of the treatment variable with the error terms would be 0, right?
Yes, if they are uncorrelated with each other, all the x's, then it would be unbiased.
Okay, so it doesn't, in that kind of a sense, we are omitting variables, but still our beta coefficient will be unbiased.
They don't matter. They don't matter, right? Because they are uncorrelated.
Okay, and so the R square will be low in this case, right? Because we are not accounting for a lot of variables.
Yes, the R square will be low. The R square will be low, but the coefficient on your x1 would be unbiased.
So this proves that, I mean, this is an example where even though our beta coefficient is unbiased, we may, and even if we ignore, say, measurement error, we may have a low R square. So that's not a problem. Right?
Yes, exactly.
And sir, also the other way, if we have, I mean, if y only depends on x, say if we were taking the example of that agriculture and income depending on treatment effect, and we take a variable such that, I mean, correlation it will capture, but causation is not there. For example, if we take a variable like density of the number of treatments, the number of training centers per kilometer area, that will have an effect on my x, but not on my y. And if I estimate that kind of a model, what the covariance will be there, but it doesn't directly depend on y. So then what would be the situation?
No. In that case, there would be a problem because I mean the the distance. See what it's the what you have just and the example that you're giving is an example of an instrument. So distance from a training program may actually be an instrument for attending training program itself, right? So if your likelihood of attending a training program may depend upon how far the training center is from your home. So in that case, it becomes more complicated.
Correct, sir, but it will not directly have an effect on y.
It will have an effect on y via your treatment.
Correct, sir.
Anything else?
So just one last
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
So you mentioned at the end, you mentioned about the spurious relationship when there is a third unobserved variable which is pushing both of the variables together.
Right.
So if we have such kind of relationship that is causing independent variable to move, that is a case of endogeneity. So how do we correct this? Because the economic development will have positive effect on wages. And it will be positively correlated with our independent variables. So there will be a huge upward bias in betas.
So that's what we did. You can have time dummies in your regressions and that takes care of it.
So that time dummies will, yes, sir, they will trend out in parameters. Thank you, sir.
Right,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's what they are capturing. Yeah. Any other question?
Sir.
No. Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, so while doing the one-way 6FS model or two-way 6FS model, if we do not have any theoretical idea about which one to use, is adjusted R-square a good metric to compare those two models?
Generally, we would not. When you can look at R squares, that's not a problem. But R squares, you would consider coefficient movements rather than R squares when you're thinking of a causal story. Okay, so suppose you run an OLS regression with no fixed effects, and you have a certain estimate of your treatment effect. Then you add fixed effects. Then you see what happens to your treatment effect estimate. Okay. If adding more variables does not influence your estimate, then you can safely conclude that all those omitted variables are probably not correlated with your treatment effect. Okay. R square movements may not be very informative in this case because R square may artificially go up and down just because you have now more control variables, right? Remember I showed you that graph where I keep on adding control variables and the estimate goes down. So those are the kind of things you have to look for. So suppose you add your individual dummies and you find your coefficient goes down, the treatment effect goes down. So then that means that these omitted variables are correlated with my treatment. Now you add time fixed effects also, and the treatment effect goes down further. Then you can conclude that, oh, these omitted time fixed effects were also probably correlated with my control, my treatment effect. So those movements you have to look for when you are deciding what to add and what not to add. You stop adding when your estimate sort of stabilizes, okay, does not vary with addition of more variables. So that's what you do. R-square movements in general will not be very informative about whether you are achieving causality or not. Anything else? Can't hear you.
What's the after when the healthy estimator became?
Sorry, I can't hear you. I didn't hear you. What did you say? Can you repeat?
Am I audible?
You are audible, but your voice is breaking.
Shivanjan, probably can write it on the chat window.
Yeah, it would be better if you type it on the chat window. Or you can also, you can also email me that, and we will continue this in the next class tomorrow. This will continue, this story will continue, and tomorrow we will talk about how we may, panel data is a luxury actually. Having individual level panel data is a luxury. We don't have that sort of a data. Next class, we will see how you can exploit this idea of fixed effects even in a cross section. Okay, so we can use a cross-sectional data to even within a cross-section we can have these fixed effects, and we can have some control over these omitted variables, time invariant omitted variables. So I will continue on this. We will discuss the example, then we will go on to stata and explicitly do these things. So you can ask all your questions. You will have more questions tomorrow, I'm sure. So you can ask all those questions tomorrow also. And all these data sets and files are there. It's there uploaded on my website. You can go there, you can download it, and you can do all these things by yourself. And it will give you much greater clarity on what is happening. Okay. So I'll see you tomorrow then. Okay. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.